But yeah, I mean, they really missed the boat on Mike Awesome. They kept Lance Storm around for a little bit. They did what they would, or whatever they did with him. And that was pretty much it. But that was a really good match, a solid match. Then you had the referees match between Earl Hebner and Nick Patrick. Okay, we get it. It's a gimmick. The two senior officials going after one another. Okay, that's great. APA versus Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo. Now, this is a tag team that they really missed the boat on, and I don't care what anybody tells me. O'Haire and Palumbo, along with, I believe it was Jindrak and Jindrak and
John Stasiak.
It was Stasiak, right?
Yes.
Because I remember
they were like, it's like they essentially brought over the new blood, the Vince Russo new blood angle, because that's the only guys that weren't like collecting the super big paychecks still from Turner at the time.
Right.
And that's what they just tried to roll with. And I don't know, that wasn't enough for me to keep watching wrestling at the time.
Yeah, but I mean, well, if I remember right, in WCW, O'Haire, I think, was tagging with Stasiak, and Palumbo was tagging with Jindrak. Then they somehow switched partners, and then they went on their way that way. O'Haire was a waste. I mean, I don't want to say a wasted talent, because he provided what he could with whatever chances he was given. But he was definitely a guy who they missed the boat on, and I believe
wasn't he like a Randy, like a head case, like kind of like Orton was?
No, kind of, but he also had like the male
shitting in people's bags, like Orton was.
Right, but he had the basically a tattooed Victoria gimmick, but for a male. Like, but he had Roddy Piper as his manager too. So, but yeah, they tried with him, and it just didn't work out. And Palumbo went on to having great tag team success with Billy Gunn as Billy and Chuck. So they didn't really miss the boat on Palumbo.
Yeah, I mean, they got what they could out of. I think it's when you get to that stage, it's really got to be the perfect storm. Like, you look at an example. The perfect example is The Undertaker. How many other guys fucking fail miserably within that gimmick, and it becomes nothing? But
right.
It's the right guy, the right creative, the right time, and there you go. You get fucking magic.
Right. Then you had, Then you had the Cruiserweights, Billy Kidman and X-Pac. Billy Kidman defeats X-Pac. Great match. That was the time when everybody was chanting X-Pac sucks, and yet he was...
That was the beginning of X-Pac heat, you could say?
It was the height of it. I don't want to say it was the beginning, but it was the height of it.
I think that's kind of when people started to turn on him. I think it really kicks off with much later on after he leaves wrestling and some of the things that he's said and done.
True. Let's see. We got Raven defeated William Regal. Okay. Then we had Sean Stasiak, Chris Kanyon, and Hugh Morris of the Alliance defeating Billy Gunn, Big Show, and Albert in a 6-man tag, under 5-minute match. Now, before I go on here, let me just make a point here. And I just looked over at the chat for a second where James was giving his respects to O'Haire, who is also dead. Look at the list of these people that are on here, and a lot of them are fucking dead. Mike Awesome, he's dead. Sean O'Haire is dead. You have Chris Kanyon, who's gone. You know, it's crazy. I'm just going down the line here and seeing if there isn't anybody else.
I mean, dude, you've seen it. You've been in locker rooms with guys that have been in the business 20 and 30 years. You can tell who has lived a life, either because of this business or before they got into this business.
Yep.
And it's you can only burn the candle from both ends for so long before it runs out, man. Like,
just a quick side story. I hate to use name. Well, I'm not going to use names. There was a former ECW talent who eventually got onto the WWE ECW, and he was working a show that I know exactly what
you're talking about, and I remember him well.
I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, he was I just remember him being at the show, and I remember watching him on TV, like, okay, he's there, you know, he's energetic, he's making good money. And here he is. I'm sure he's getting paid all right going to this show. And I'm observing him from afar because I'm only there, like, kind of accompanying somebody, just kind of hanging out in the locker room. And there this guy is.
You're the lucky to be there. I've been there too. I've been that guy too.
Well, no. It wasn't even that. But he looked so drained. And he looked so done. Like, to the point where and then him and I got started talking. I don't know how, but we did. And I legitimately felt bad for him because it's what you were saying. Like, the wrestling business took a toll on him to the point where, I mean, the motherfucker needs therapy. I don't know if he has it. I don't know if he ever got it, and I hope he did. But I talked to him for a little bit because I think it almost felt like he needed someone to talk to, and he let out a little bit in which I guess, I hope whatever I talked to him about helped him. I mean, but the dude really needed to see a therapist, and wherever he is...
It's one of those things where it felt weird to you, where you were having someone that you watched on TV, and maybe not you were necessarily a super fan, but you were... But
he was confiding in me, a complete stranger, exactly. And he knows me as... That weird moment where you're peers, and you're just realizing that he's viewing you that way, and you always had this person kind of on like a pedestal. Yeah, and honestly, I still think of him that way. And I hope he's doing well. I haven't seen his name around in wrestling in a little bit, so I kind of hope. Well, not that I really hope he's okay. But going on back to Invasion for a second, Tajiri defeating Taz. If this was an ECW, it would have been a much better matchup. Then the match of the night, and this is where WWF basically started knocking out the dream matches left and right, like the dream matches. Between RVD of the Alliance defeating Jeff Hardy for the Hardcore Championship. And, I mean, this wasn't their better match. They had a rematch later on for the Hardcore title as well. But this match was insane. I remember them doing like a Van Dam doing a Van Daminator on the ramp where they kind of had the two separate entrances at each part of like the moat that was in the middle of the entranceway. Hardy goes down, RVD dives after. I mean, it was insane. Like, absolutely insane. They both had to have been on drugs. And I don't care if they weren't. It was still absolutely insane. This is where I believe... I mean, RVD was so over. It was ridiculous. Like, he's that guy that transcended, the different brands. All right, I see that you got to...
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to do that to you subtly.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So it basically. So
I thought RVD for a while was the best pure you know how that title kind of gets passed around, best pure athlete in wrestling.
But that motherfucker was doing splits between chairs as his warm up.
Like he was at the time, he was on a whole other level than a lot of guys. Like you're going to say the guy that was on his level at that time because he was an Olympic gold medalist was Angle.
Right.
And then maybe Brock. But once those guys didn't come in until '96, but there was that solid maybe 2 to 3 years towards like when ECW started to take off nationally, and towards the end when he was still the TV champ, when he was the best athlete in wrestling.
And he had like the 22-month reign, whatever it was, as television champion. And because of a freak accident, he wound up breaking his leg, forfeiting the title, and that it almost seems like that's when ECW started really going down to shitters.
They were fucked after that. Like that was what kind of killed ECW.
I mean,
they lost their big star.
It was a freak injury. They had no plan B, and
right after Taz left.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, they were destroyed.
Yeah, it was bad. It was pretty bad.
All right, so then we get to Trish and Lita versus Tori and Stacy, and they win. Trish and Lita. Then you have the inaugural brawl where the Alliance wins over WWF. Okay, so even if let's just say for argument's sake, even if a lot of these guys who were holding out, even if they came back, or even if they came around at the time in which, this was kind of becoming a big ass thing. I find it. How do you book that though? Like I said before, you have Ric Flair, Hogan, Hall, Nash, Goldberg. Again, overrated as per people's opinion, and I kind of like to believe it is fact. But you have that factor of that he was a huge draw. Like, okay, WWF at the time was drawing insane amounts of money because of the intellectual properties that they now owned. Between all the companies, the stars that they were bringing in, RVD was pushing merch out like crazy. The Hardys, Steve Austin, all that good noise. Then everybody who was pro WCW was buying the WCW shirts and all that stuff too. So, but then how would you book it? Like you have, like you were saying before, you have such egos that it would have made it a booking nightmare for Vince McMahon and the creative team to be like, okay, well, but then who do you trade for who? Like, okay, like at one point, do you have Hogan turn on the Alliance to go and serve for the WWF once again because that was the brand that made him a household name? And even if they didn't, with Steve Austin being the leader of the Alliance, how would that have gone over? Would that have been the time that you may have gotten Hogan versus Austin potentially at Survivor Series, WWF versus the Alliance? Like,
I think they have to book it to wrestling. They do now, book it with WrestleMania in mind. So have Survivor Series be the kickoff. Like, just keep going the same way, but then at the end of it, when the WWF Vince McMahon thinks he's victorious and he thinks he's vanquished the mighty WCW. Well, here comes, the thing that almost took him down. The three guys that got away. Hogan, Nash, Hall, and the rest of the NWO. You want to even bring Savage in there as well. And then just people like those work shoot angles. Play off that. There you go. You got so many internal storylines. Shawn was on the cusp of coming back, I think, at that point in time.
2002 is when he came back.
Yeah, so I think, Nash and Hall and all those guys showing up at the same time, I think that accelerates that process, because that's just a phone call away.
Yeah, and he was wrestling in Puerto Rico. I saw a video not too long ago. He was having hardcore matches in Puerto Rico in 2001 before ever coming back to the WWF, and I'm referencing Shawn Michaels.
That was when he was trying to get his promotion over, and that was what he tried to become promoter Shawn for a little bit, and trainer Shawn.
Yeah, but obviously we all know, and we've witnessed that.
We all see how that worked out, because he went right back to Vince for the paycheck.
I mean, and he got a pretty sweet fucking paycheck. But also in 2001...
we got another 10 years out of him. That was the crazy part.
Yeah, well, for all you Shawn fans, yes, you got that. But
I had to. That's my guy.
But okay, so then let's go even deeper into this. What if guys like Bret Hart never got hurt? Would he have been still so bitter, collect his WCW money?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Or would they have made him an offer that he just cannot refuse to come back in?
I think the Owen scar was still raw. I think, Bret was still just, broken up about how it happened. It would take an awful lot still to bring him to the table. That was still a pretty open wound, I think, at the time. And this is a guy that had to show the self-control. It's I'm not going to go on podcasts anymore because I'm going to say something that's going to draw and get attention, so I'm just not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
He literally had to censor himself.
Yeah. But still, it's amazing the endless possibility. And you still also had Luger, you had Conan, you had Rey Mysterio, who eventually debuted later. If he had debuted then, how much different would things have been in the light heavyweight / cruiserweight division? We would have been seeing more of Mysterio X-Pac versus Mysterio Kidman, or a triple threat match, Mysterio, Kidman, and X-Pac. It's really amazing. What could have been.
Of all the things that Vince McMahon did, like WrestleMania, Monday Night Raw, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Generation X, all that other stuff, this is the one thing like he botched, and the XFL.
I don't even think it botched
the
though.
only two things that he's really kind of messed up.
I don't think it really even botched. Like,